Welcome back to another Patreon exclusive Chempilation. Thank you again for your support, you magnificent patrons. And the last story today is going to be the popcorn pillow story, but I have some other stories before that, and hopefully you enjoy. The popcorn pillow isn't exactly a chemistry story, but it does involve oxidation in some ways. In school, in an auto program, we were working on a truck, and I got a mixture of both brake fluid and gasoline in my eye because one of the other high school students wanted to pull a brake fluid prank on me, one of my friends, but also ended up putting a bend in the gas line. It was so painful. Thank God for emergency eye wash stations and PPE because only a small percentage of the mixture got into my right eye. But I'm 34 now, and my left eye always has blurriness from prolonged exposure to light, and I get double vision. It's pretty insane the types of pranks kids do to each other. And yeah, I think we should all be really grateful for eye wash stations and PPE. I think quite often people get comfortable with safety and they think, oh, I don't know too many instances where bad things have happened, so everything must be fine, right? But there are a lot of people who do have workplace accidents, and just because we don't hear about them doesn't mean that they're not actual risks that we need to worry about. Which nerve agent is the most evil? In this video, we talk about a series of nerve agents from the G series, and this person here says, it really changes the meaning of finding the G-spot. I think finding the G-spot with G-series agents is probably the worst thing you could ever do. But hey, maybe it'll get those nerves firing in a way that would actually be good. I'm not going to test it out though, and I don't think you should either. Once during a presentation at the ACS MEDI section, the presenter, who works on pain and inflammation, referred to their compounds as COX blockers rather than inhibitors. COX is just an abbreviation for cyclooxygenase 1 and 2. Most of the time when you have an NSAID, it's involved with the antagonism of a COX receptor, although oftentimes you get poor selectivity between COX-1 and COX-2, which is why certain NSAIDs like celecoxib and rofecoxib were developed. Now, while it is technically a COX blocker, it's something that your colleagues might not be expecting to hear. The manganese is always better than the hentai-nese. Actually, I think I've heard of some scientists who were doing some research into the chemistry of anime, and they happened to discover a new element. It's called hentanese. I learned the spooky way that you shouldn't mess around with lithium. This happened 15 to 20 minutes ago. I love that people just comment this, like, hey, I just did something now, but I need to tell you about it because I've learned my lesson. Bro, you haven't even had a chance to sleep on this yet. I don't think you've learned your lesson yet. I opened a button cell battery to extract the lithium. I had prepared a container of paraffin oil to store it under. My boyfriend likes it when I demonstrate chemical reactions for him, so I called him on FaceTime to show him the reaction between lithium metal and water. I love the idea of chemistry FaceTiming. This is hilarious. I took the metal and dropped it into a glass of water, and it fizzed a bit, and then it was over. While I was cleaning up, however, I breathed in. It felt like inhaling finely ground up Pop Rocks. Oh no. I rushed out of the room and started coughing, and my boyfriend was freaking out, so I asked him to calm down while I called poison control. Nothing ended up happening other than me feeling like a total idiot for not having proper ventilation or PPE. The main reason I didn't put this one on the main channel is I don't really want to encourage people to be digging apart batteries. I know there's other channels on YouTube that do that, but hey, you're a patron, so if you want to dig into a battery, go ham. In response to dead cats in the biolab, some years ago, I was the laboratory director at a very small college, which meant that I was in charge of getting waste, both chemical and biological, picked up by the appropriate contractors. Now, I'm a physical chemist, and I'm much more comfortable handling hideously toxic chemical waste than biohazard stuff, so I let the bioresearchers and students take care of packing their waste most of the time, and I just called the service when their bins were full. One day, the maintenance crew is cleaning out a storage room, and one of the guys comes over to me with a big cardboard box and says, I think this is your department. He hands me the box, and I open it. There was a vacuum-packed tomcat sprawled out on its back in the box, and clearly the seal had been compromised because the cat was completely green in the bag. Oh no! I threw the box across the hall and spent the next 10 minutes retching in the bathroom. Fortunately for me, the bio department got their own lab manager shortly after that, and I didn't have to deal with dead cats anymore. I'd love to see the biologist vacuum packing a dead cat, and their expressions just like, yep, totally normal. This is just normal business. This one time I was touching a hot pepper, and the next day I stuck my finger somewhere, and it was a moment. So I have a story related to this too. So when I was growing up, me and my friends were hanging out, and this one person in our friend group was eating some habanero olives. These are just your typical pitted green olives, except instead of a normal pimento pepper in the middle, they have a habanero. And so my friend takes a bite of it. And as he does so, part of the habanero was like sticking out of his mouth. And when he bit into the olive, it sprayed him right in the eye. And so he got habanero juice in his eye and he was like screaming in pain. And, you know, we're a group of young guys. So my other friend's thinking, oh, you're just being a pussy. This is probably fine. So he just like dips his finger in the habanero olive juice and just rubs it into his eye. And now we have two idiots in extreme pain. And yeah, so both of them learned, yeah, habanero pepper's pretty spicy. Probably not something you just want to stick in your eye. So I think the takeaway is to not stick spicy fingers into mucous membranes. This just happened to me a few hours ago. Here we have another one of those stories where this person has clearly not learned their lesson yet. So I found out that a store somehow sold 1.25 kilograms of potassium nitrate intended for stump removal without any age restriction. Here the concern is that potassium nitrate is an oxidizer, and in the presence of a fuel, this could just be a bomb. So this is like a little bit sketchy. So a while ago, a happy 16-year-old walks out of that store with one of those containers, hoping that the cashier wouldn't know what else it could be used for. Well, today, I wanted to make some rocket candy. My safety measures were to make such a small batch that even if it all caught fire, everything would be fine. So I put it in a small metal container and melted it together over a candle. I knew how stupid this was, but didn't see how the flame could make it over the walls of the container. It worked. Nothing bad happened. So I decided to put the toothpick I used to stir in the flames. As soon as it lit, a bit of it was thrown into the metal container and it all caught fire. Like I said, the batch was so small that nothing bad did happen, but my whole room was filled with quite a lot of smoke. Just barely managed to get it all out before my parents got home. Thankfully, the mixture had a bit more potassium nitrate than it should for the amount of sugar. The combustion was therefore rather complete, and actually nearly odorless. If this had actually smelled like smoke, I probably would have been in quite a lot of trouble, as smoke smells tend to stick to clothes and hair. I will, by the way, never again attempt to do anything with pyrotechnics over an open flame, unless the goal is to light it, nor will I be doing anything like it indoors. The worst part about this is this was done indoors. What's the totally normal thing to do a couple hours after you set off rocket candy in your bedroom? Write a YouTube comment. Hey, you know, more people want to do that? All power to them. Which nerve agent is the most evil? I wonder who the first volunteer for lethal injection was, because I guarantee you they didn't volunteer. Long ago, at the beginning of my academic career, I was a TA for a general chemistry lab. We did a freezing point depression lab where they used these huge old high-precision mercury thermometers to measure the freezing point of their mixtures. We gave them special thermometer adapters that had a slot in the side to put the thermometer in. We told them to never push the thermometer into the adapter from the top. It was inevitable that it would break, and every semester someone would break one of these things. So comes time for this lab, in my second year as a TA, and one of the students yells, "Mr. Newman, I have a problem." I grab the mercury spill kit and start heading over, and the kid holds up her hand, with the broken thermometer jammed through it. The EMS guys were impressed when they picked her up. I've seen a similar thing happen in a lot of the labs that I've TA'd. Oftentimes, instead of a thermometer, it's frequently a glass stir rod. And I've had several people in labs that I've TA'd and other labs that other people have TA'd get a glass stir rod to cut one of their fingers or occasionally even impale it into their hand. So yeah, definitely be careful how you push on glass rods, because glass rods can break, and not only can they spill mercury, but they can impale you. So the bonus story for today is the story about the popcorn pillow. So this isn't really a chemistry story, as I said earlier. This is just kind of an anecdotal story I had growing up, but it's a really good story. I didn't want to share it on the main channel in case the person who's in this story watches the channel, but nonetheless, I thought you guys would enjoy it. So here we go. When I was growing up, we had a group of young guys who would try and fix stuff every few weekends. And so my dad was involved with this. And one weekend, we decided to host an overnight event where the guys could kind of all just like hang out. It was just like a giant sleepover, you know, like a movie night, the sort of thing you'd expect. And because it was a sleepover, we had to bring sleeping bags and pillows. And so this one guy who was attending brings this pillow, and I could see him from across the room when he walks in the door. This is like a fairly large room, you know, like far enough away that, you know, he was probably like the size of my thumb when I saw him walk through the door. He was far enough away that, you know, I could tell it was him, but I couldn't make out every detail of what he was wearing. But I could see that he was holding a pillow, and it looked like it had a popcorn print pattern on it. I'm like, oh, that's a cool pattern. I wonder where you get a pillowcase like that. And so as he's walking over to us, because we were setting up our sleeping bags right as we arrived, it became evident that this was not a popcorn pillowcase. So you might have seen pillows that look like this before. Those look kind of nasty, right? But these pillows were immaculate compared to this guy's pillow. And so what his pillow actually looked like was more like this. I just recreated this in Photoshop, but it really doesn't do it justice because his pillow was still way worse than this. It was disgusting. It was like the grossest thing I've ever seen. And so we were asking him about it, and apparently he just doesn't use a pillowcase. And so he's been drooling into this pillow every night for like a solid 2 years. And presumably some crazy oxidation is happening to the pillow due to the presence of metals or whatnot in his mouth, which is just so gross. And so I was like, ew, that's disgusting. And my other friend's like, that's so gross. What's wrong with you? And then when my dad saw the pillow, my dad's like, that pillow needs to be burned. We definitely made fun of him, and it was like really gross. Because like, what's the right thing to do in that scenario? I feel like the humanitarian thing to do is to just take that person's pillow, destroy it, and give them $20 to buy a new one, because it was so gross. Anyway, I thought after that like hazing, he would deal with it on his own. So a couple years go by. At this point, he's probably done high school, and I'm over at his house, and I look under his bed. He had like a bunk bed where there's a bunk bed on the top and like a desk on the bottom and a second bed on the bottom. And on the second bed, the pillow was still there, but it was behind his other pillows, which had pillowcases. So yeah, if you have a pillow that looks like this, it's probably time to get a new one. So I want to thank all of you magnificent patrons for your support. It wouldn't be possible for me to make these videos if I didn't have your support, so I really appreciate it. If you like this style of video and you want to see more like it, please let me know here or on the Discord or anywhere that I'm reachable. And if you have any other ideas for types of videos you'd like me to post on Patreon, aside from just chemistry Chempilations, I wouldn't mind varying it up and doing a bit of other stuff. So thanks for watching. Thank you for your support once again, and I hope you have a great day.